Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Across Generations, a celebration of Pakistani-American identity. As part of APF's Heritage Week, we come together to reflect on the richness of our shared heritage, the resilience of our diaspora, and the evolving ways in which we express our identity across borders and time. This is a space to honor the stories of those who came before us and celebrate the contributions of the Pakistani Americans today and imagine the future we can create together. Without further ado, I would like to call Dr. Nasser Qureshi, Chairman of APF Board of Directors, to share a few remarks.
Thank you very much, Maha. Ambassador Rizwan Sheikh, Sahib, our host speaker today, Raza Rumi, both of you have been very kind to agree to join us, the American Pakistan Foundation, in celebrating 14th August this year. As Maha has alluded to the topic, I think across generations, the celebration of Pakistan-American identity speaks to where we stand as a Pakistan-American community today, with the number of first-generation Americans far exceeding the immigrant Americans. As you may know, American Pakistan Foundation was formed in 2009 with a mission statement which stated that its role would be in empowering Pakistan-American community and fostering relationships between USA and Pakistan. Over the years, as it evolved, a realization came that empowering Pakistani-American community can be ideally achieved by empowering our youth. And around 2017, 2016, before I joined APF, it started moving in that direction. The realization for the board members, which I'm sure everyone knows and realizes, is that Pakistani-American youth play a significant role in promoting their identity, fostering a sense of community by navigating the complexities of their heritage through various means, such as cultural expression, celebrating traditions, and there is an intergenerational dialogue seeking cultural knowledge and values. Basically, they have a desire for strengthening their values to their roots. One of the most common things for people who join a leadership council, when asked why you want to join APF, is they want to be in touch with and interact with other Pakistanis wherever they are. And what we have realized is that even in first generation Pakistani Americans, the desire to highlight their culture and also do something positive for Pakistan is well rooted, which is a very promising sign. The youth is challenged with navigating dual identities and finding ways to embrace both American and Pakistani cultures, integrating the best attributes of both and creating a unique hyphenated identity. They're increasingly getting involved in advocacy, which we see. I think there are a reasonable number of Pakistani Americans who are running for offices in local offices and even for the Senate. And APF realized the importance of helping establish a platform for our youth and young professionals, helping them build a nationwide community, creating spaces for mentorship, leadership development, networking, and programs which allow them self-expression in a kind of a protective environment, which is most important. And we have worked very hard to foster their creativity and help them make an impact in the community and in Pakistan. It is extremely important that we also realize the role that Pakistani American women are playing in the fabric and in the community, and I think it is not something which is hidden to anyone, that the Pakistani-American youth, and let's define it broadly, we define it from 20 years to 40, and young professionals, they are doing some amazing work within their communities and professionally. And with that, I welcome all of our participants, our board members and leadership council members, which are attending the seminar. And as a last remark, of all what I've said APF is trying to do, leadership council by itself is the cornerstone of APF activities today. With that, I'll close my remarks and thank you everyone for being here today, and much more importantly, celebrating our heritage, our independence, and reconnecting with who we are and where we belong. Thank you, Maha.
Thank you so much, Dr. Qureshi, for your welcome. I would now like to invite the Honorable Ambassador Rizwan Saeed Sheikh, Ambassador of Pakistan to the US, for his remarks. Welcome, Ambassador.
Thank you, Maha, Dr. Qureshi, my good old friend, Raza Rumi, in my favorite city right now, Istanbul. We were just talking before the commencement, the formal commencement, that we spent some good times together in Istanbul when I was posted there. It was my first ever outing in the Foreign Service. But coming back to the Independence Day celebration today, this is the 79th Independence Day celebration of Pakistan. And let's say that since last year, in the past year, I also landed here just after the 78th Independence Day celebration on the 20th of August. And now that we are again in the 14th of August Independence Day celebration, a lot has changed. A lot has changed in the world. A lot has changed between Pakistan and United States. And it's not that everything has changed. For a change, the change has been positive. It reflects, it depicts, it is pregnant with optimism. So, Dr. Nasser, your team, APF, holding this important webinar today certainly would help, I believe, generate not only some stock taking, but some ideas in terms of how best to enhance Pak-US relations, particularly at the people-to-people and the cultural, the heritage level, and how to strengthen bonds of friendship that would basically survive us as a generation. You have mentioned that from the first generation Pakistanis to their offspring who have been born here, but are somewhat struggling to relate themselves to their identity. It is important to have events like this, to have forums like the APF with its particular focused emphasis on youth empowerment, and within the youth empowerment component, even women empowerment, because I was there at the annual event about 2 months back. And it was really pleasing to know that the organization, which was established in 2009, has not only come of age, but it has a focused approach in letting the new generation of Pakistanis take the saddle, and the first generation or the second generation taking a back seat and helping them, coordinating their activities, perhaps affording them guidance, but then letting them realize, discover their roots, their identity, and of course, try and anchor themselves in that identity. It is a world of motherlands and homelands. People are born in different countries. They may get educated in another country, and they finally decide to settle in a third country. And that's what is the connectivity significance of contemporary times, that it is being said that it is analogous to a global village. So in this world of motherlands and homelands, for Pakistani Americans, while America is a homeland, and it should be seen, felt, and sort of featured into their consideration, figured into their calculations like that, the element of motherland should also not be lost. Why is that? It is because, just to maybe try and narrate it through personal experience, when I landed in last August, it was an election fever in the United States. The election season was at its peak. And actually, the previous time I witnessed a US election was in 2016. And by the way, somehow each time I witness an election, President Trump wins. So that is something which is significant. But I distinctly remember that during that election of 2016, Bernie Sanders, who was a candidate, 200 years after his ancestry migrated from Poland, was being referred to in that election as a Polish American. So Pakistani Americans will continue to be Pakistani Americans for generations. They are so recorded in the US data. And I mean, if you take just the Bernie Sanders example, so for the next 200 years easily, Pakistani Americans would be so recorded in history. It is important for them to realize not only their identity, to recognize that identity, but to promote that identity. Because that identity in a world of motherlands and homelands, in a world which is a global village, would kind of act as an ancestral home or a roots, so as to say. And no matter how much a tree grows in terms of or stems out of earth, significance of roots should not be lost, cannot be lost, because that lends you the ultimate strength, that is a frame of reference in terms of recognizing, honoring your cultural heritage, your history. And for Pakistan, it is the ultimate source of pride. We should be the most proud people on earth because our history dates back to the beginning of times. I mean, we decided that we will have Islamabad as our capital maybe in early 60s, and we did not know at that time. But now we know that 40 kilometers or so from Islamabad, we have found remains of Paleolithic age in the Swan Valley. So we are the oldest people on earth, and our roots in the civilization, in the march of civilization, in the history of mankind, are so deep-seated that it should be the ultimate source of pride. Whatever we have gathered in terms of cultural richness, in terms of civilizational wealth, in terms of the expressions of culture in arts, in artifacts, in crafts, in different expressions of human behavior and human thought process, stays with us. So we perhaps are certainly duty bound in a sense that wherever we go, we have to, in terms of not just our duty to our own self, but in terms of our duty to humankind, we have to share our heritage, our history, our cultural experiences with the rest of the world. And what better place for this kind of an endeavor than United States of America, which is the ultimate multicultural society. It's a society of people, it's a polity of people, it's an economy of people, the best of the best perhaps, in the world that came here and got settled from different parts of the world, and have been able, while pursuing their American dreams in one way or the other, retain their cultural identities. But what is significant? Let me subscribe to so as to say, perhaps, Edward Saïdian theory on identities, that identities should be built. I mean, they are there. They cannot be denied. They are facts of life. They are facts of march of civilization. But from a futuristic standpoint, they should be built on commonalities, not differences, because the ideological identity differences have caused a lot of problems in the world over the sort of advance of history, over the advancement of time. They have caused multiple issues. So having learned from history, we should be able to develop future of mankind, future of multicultural, future of connected societies, future of knowledge societies on the basis of commonalities. That is something that I would want to perhaps place on the table as a moot point, or as a discussion point for this not just seminar, but for perhaps a continuing dialogue that must take place at other fora also. Let's find commonalities. So with regard to the Pakistani and American culture, there are commonalities. Our aspirations to democracy, we have a democratic history. I mean, Pakistan was a near miracle. The struggle for Pakistan is so miraculous that in a small, comparatively time period of 7 years, if you take it from the period when the Muslims of India decided to have a separate homeland in 1940 to 1947, we won independence. And there too, in terms of today's world, one thing is significant, that when the British left, they partitioned the subcontinent. And I'm choosing my words carefully. They did not partition India. There never was an India that they colonized. There was a collection of multiple, in hundreds, princely states which they colonized once after the other. And then once they were at the peak of their rule, there was this Second World War. During the war, since they sought help from this colony, they also made a promise that they would be granted freedom. And in granting that freedom, the subcontinent was partitioned into India and Pakistan. So just to narrate this, that this is the kind of challenges that, based on its ideological foundations, Pakistan faces today. And perhaps it has to be woven into a discussion on culture, a discussion on heritage, that our ideology in our part of the world is distinct. It merits preservation, it merits promotion, and anywhere in the world, like in this country, organizations like APF, when they try and bridge the cultural divides, promote cultural understanding, promote the common heritage of mankind, I would strongly insist that whatever has to be done should be done, not just in terms of promoting Pakistan's rich historical, cultural, ideological heritage, but here in this country, in trying to strengthen the bonds of friendship between Pakistan and the United States at a time when the trajectory in terms of the progression in relationship is ascendant, is positive, should be done, should be found on the basis of commonalities. And I thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Sheikh, for your inspirational remarks on this auspicious occasion. Your remarks truly remind us of our identities and allow for introspection around this topic. I would now like to invite and introduce our speaker, Raza Rumi, a policy analyst, journalist, and author. Raza is a distinguished lecturer at Roosevelt House of Public Policy at Hunter College and also teaches at Cornell University's Brooks School of Public Policy. Formerly director of the Park Center for Independent Media at Ithaca College, he has also been affiliated with New York University, the New America Foundation, and the U.S. Institute of Peace. Welcome, Reza. Reza, as you know, we're celebrating Heritage Week around Independence Day at APF to honor our roots and our culture. How do you personally define Pakistani heritage in today's globalized world?
Thank you so much, Maha. And before I start, let me.
Reza, you're muted.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maha, for this opportunity. And I should thank Dr. Qureshi, Ambassador Sheikh, and the American Pakistani Foundation for inviting me. This is a great topic and very close to my heart. And I think the learned ambassador has already laid out some of the contours of what I intend to say. I think Pakistani heritage in today's globalized world, we can view it as a multi-layered tapestry reflecting thousands of years of history and cultural diversity. That's where Pakistan's strength actually lies, in its diversity and the cultural idea of Pakistan itself, from the Indus Valley civilization to the Gandhara civilization, which produced exquisite art and sculptures, to Mughal architectural marvels in Lahore and elsewhere. Pakistan's heritage is both ancient and living. And heritage is not a static idea or thing because it encompasses the dynamic evolution of languages, literatures, music, crafts, and even values, values that we often take pride in, such as resilience, hospitality, and pluralism. And in this age, in the globalized world, heritage therefore is not just a domestic idea or a concern, but it becomes a global narrative and and acquires a global significance. Because when Pakistani identity is showcased abroad, or its culture is projected abroad. And through that, we're also communicating our soft power, allowing other nations to see our creativity, the historical depth and values. And, that sheds many a stereotype, but it also helps countries' image to sort of not just improve, but create better understanding and exchange to global audiences, and especially in the US, where we see that it's again a mosaic of so many different cultures and subcultures, and most importantly, given our recent history in the last 2 3 decades with war on terror and the peculiar way of looking at Pakistan through the lens of Afghanistan or AFPAC or terrorism, it is most important for us to tell the Americans and our fellow Americans, our neighbors, our friends, other communities that Pakistan is not just limited to the northwestern regions that you often think of, but it is a far more complex and far more amazing place than imagined. And so, for example, if Americans are celebrating Eid in New York or Los Angeles, and if they combine traditional rituals with contemporary cultural expression, that is one way of projecting that particular cultural power in a globalized world. I mean, I can cite some examples. South Korea is a great example, which has globalized its hanbok attire and its K-pop culture. If you look at Netflix, for example, you find so much of K-pop and Korean drama content. And same is the case with Turkey. And we know that India has been leveraging Bollywood and its classical arts to engage international audiences. So perhaps, in this digital age, it has become far easier. In, let's say, 20 years ago, you would have to hold in-person physical events and build centers and concrete, etc. But these days, digital storytelling can make heritage accessible, short films, Instagram reels, podcasts, poetry, and other means of cultural expression and projecting our heritage is something that would connect to the globalized world.
Thank you so much, Raza. You made some excellent points about cultural diplomacy and the role that it plays in preserving heritage and representing yourself in a very globalized world. Now, how do you think the younger Pakistani Americans, especially in the US, can remain connected to their roots while shaping their own identity abroad?
So I think this is again a very important point that you're raising, because I mean I too have two young adults as my children who are now in the United States, and often they are at the their cultural understanding of America and Pakistan crisscrosses, and it's a challenge. But I think the real challenge here is about bridging generations. Dr. Qureshi talked about the first generation immigrants and the later, their children and their grandchildren. And the real idea here is that, how do we ensure that our heritage is presented in an accessible, relevant manner to younger audiences? And that is where we need to foster better connections between the diaspora youth and cultural institutions, both within Pakistan and here in the United States as well. And this is why Pakistan would need to invest in a network of cultural ambassadors, going forward. The Pakistan Embassy, for example, already undertakes a lot of cultural exchange programs, etc. But I guess that would need to be broadened further, by bringing in artists in residence, writers in residence, from Pakistan, connecting them to the diaspora youth, and then, of course, the community mentorship. Professionals in Pakistan can work as mentors to young Pakistanis here, in the realm of culture, in the realm of creative arts, and other places. I think one thing that I would like to highlight, and I take the opportunity that Ambassador Sheikh is present, that we do have chairs at some key learning institutions in the US, at Berkeley, at Columbia, and other places, and there can be more chairs, and that's something that unfortunately I have been highlighting this earlier as well, and I even spoke to some friends in Pakistan. In the previous government, they had started the process, but then there were budgetary limitations. But I think that's a very important place to start with. Having Pakistan chairs in 5 or 6 key universities will allow the younger generations, and not just Pakistanis, but even younger Americans, to have a better sense of both Pakistani heritage and its culture and what is happening there, in a sort of a more accessible and engaged manner. And I think, already the APNA and the medical profession, they already do a lot of such linkages between hospitals and clinics, both in private and public sector. I think it's time that we also focus on that. So that's one concrete way uh, of doing that. And I again, would emphasize that, the university collaborations. I don't know when these chairs can become a reality, but we used to have collaborations between, LUMs in Pakistan and universities here in the US, and I think those particular collaborations can increase. And instead of we're just relying on Fulbright or other US programs, Pakistan can also start them. And some of them are very low cost. They don't require a lot of money. But, if you create partnerships between different education and learning institutions in the areas of arts, anthropology, culture, languages, it would be of immense value and benefit.
Thank you so much, Raza. Those are excellent points, especially about having representations in chairs or having university partnerships. I think those are the cornerstones of building an identity around Pakistanis and Pakistani Americans. Ambassador Sheikh, I have a question for you. How has your understanding of Pakistani heritage evolved over the years, especially through your travels and work abroad, especially in your position?
Well, over the period of my career, certainly it has evolved because I have seen multiple other cultures. I mean, my first outing was in Turkey. Then I was exposed certainly to the Eurasian culture. Later, I was in certainly Switzerland. So the Central European or the European culture, because I was able to travel during that posting in the European continent. And then I have spent in two different stints or tours of duty, 1/3 of my career in the Middle East, in the Gulf. So that also has enhanced my first-hand understanding. Of course, there is an inspirational element with regard to the Middle Eastern or the Arab culture in the Muslim heritage of our part of the world that Raza alluded to. But seeing it firsthand and the exposure lends you a much better insight into not only what could be the avenues of synthesis, but what could be the possibilities and where are the commonalities. So my subscription to this Edward Saïdian the sort of philosophy is based on my experience that let's not promote differences. Let's promote in different societies. And now I'm in again, this is my second incarnation in the United States. So I have to, while being in the United States, I believe I have been exposed to every other culture in the world because it is a multicultural society, that let's find a common ground, because there is a lot of common ground. But the politics around the world, perhaps the economic imperatives around the world, and particularly in today's world, lead us to have a synthesis of identities or have an identity discourse based on differences. That is where I insist that a course correction is needed. And Pakistani identity, in terms of just its ancient characteristic, has everything to offer that the march of civilization has to offer. Raza pointed out a cultural diversity that we have, seen, observed throughout history. We are the birthplace of, certain cultures. I mean, the Gandhara civilization, of course, the Indus Valley civilization, the Sikh sort of culture and the Sikh religion has Pakistan and places in Pakistan equivalent to their Mecca. So, there is too much diversity that is already there. There is too much tolerance that is already there. So, branding Pakistan on the basis of choice of differences or on the basis of cherry picking with regard to acts of certain fringes or certain geographies or certain contiguities, geographical contiguities, or certain perhaps political suitabilities, or perhaps administrative inadequacies or inefficiencies as a society which is not what it is, but it is a multicultural, diverse society, and it has gathered tolerance. We could not have survived for millennia in our part of the world had we not been tolerant. So finding more tolerant people than the Pakistanis, we have it in our DNA. We can tolerate a lot, and that basically is also exemplified and embodied in the resilience that we have expressed and demonstrated as a country over the past 78 years. Remember, we were a country, when we were born, there was no dearth of well-wishers around us in a strategic location that we continue to exist in. The first lease of life that was given to us was 3 months. And today we are celebrating our 79th Independence Day. And it is because this nation has seen a lot, done a lot, been through a lot, faced a lot on behalf of the rest of the world. For instance, as a frontline state in the global combat against terrorism, had we not had the required, the rich cultural attributes in our DNA of tolerance, of diversity, of accepting the differences of opinion, of accepting the differences of thought processes, differences of religious ethos, we would not have survived that far. So my exposure in other parts of the world has only strengthened my belief in the strength of my own roots and culture. And I would want this, on the basis of this determination, on the basis of this conviction, with a lot of confidence, to be promoted and portrayed and propagated in different parts of the world, including this multicultural society.
Beautifully said, Ambassador Sheikh. These are some very important points about tolerance and about how we can move forward as a society by correcting discourse that's based on imperfections and distances instead of bringing people together. On that point, Raza, I'd like to ask you, what aspects of Pakistani culture do you feel are underrepresented or misunderstood abroad, and how can the new generation work on correcting these and having a positive representation of Pakistan, both in the US and globally?
Well, I mean, I think that this will merit a long answer because one can actually write a whole book on this. But I think, as I mentioned earlier, that Pakistan has more often than not, seen only through conflict narratives, and in particular within the United States and I would say the Western world at large, because for let's say 2 decades or so, the only news you would get about Pakistan or on Pakistan was with reference to the war on terror and Afghanistan. So ultimately, I mean, and 20 years is a generational time period. The people who were kids in the early 2000s are now adults. In 2025. So obviously, the kind of impact it has is pretty toxic, unfortunately, and you see that often happening. I mean, I think what is underrepresented in the mainstream within the United States or within Western Europe, I think is precisely what we were talking about earlier about Pakistan being the seat of so many civilizations and cultures, of so many communities. Uh, People from Japan, from East Asia, they know about Gandhara civilization. They queue up for visits to Taxila and other places of both spiritual and cultural importance. The Sikhs consider certain places in Pakistan as their Mecca and Medina. And I mean, I can go on with that, but this is something that we often do not really project ourselves. I'm currently, as Ambassador Sheikh mentioned, I'm in Turkey, and those of you who have visited Turkey, I mean, it's a great example of a modern Islamic nation, Muslim majority nation, projecting both its ancient past, regardless of what it represents, in a most unique manner, not just as a source of tourism, but also as a means of soft power. So, you have Turkey exporting a large number of television content all over the world. I mean, Turkish soap operas are, after South Korea or as popular as South Korean across the world. So I think what is underrepresented is precisely the facets of the various aspects of Pakistani culture, its heritage, its civilizational ethos, and of course the values that Pakistanis represent. Some strides have been made in the recent years. I think the truck art, for example, has gotten traction here in Europe and to some degree in the US as well. I think in film festivals, Pakistani filmmakers are making their names. Some of Pakistani writers are now recognized global household names, but unfortunately, some of those writers have also pandered to the obsessions of the Western audiences about terrorism or Muslims or Islam as a how dangerous a Muslim is or not or not dangerous. There's a whole world besides this narrative. I mean, a country of 250 million people with thousands of years of history and civilizational ethos just cannot be reduced to these tropes. So I guess what is perhaps needed, as I mentioned earlier, other than the engagement with universities, etc. We have to work more towards film festivals, and they're not just, that the other problem that we face is that, often we are lumped in the South Asian category. And within the US now, both in academia and in the popular culture space, that often means India. So wherever look at the South Asian departments in most universities in the US, that's all about India. The research is about India. 80 to 90% of professors are Indians. I mean, I have no beef with that, but I guess Pakistan, as a particular country with 78 years of history now, and with a very ancient and modern and medieval past, needs to have a different place here. So that is where I guess we need to work a lot on digital media, digital storytelling, excavating digital archives. They are being developed a lot already. LUMS has taken initiative. Many other places are trying to digitize the cultural and heritage related archives, and that is where we could work on special projects, internships that relate to these particular facets of Pakistani culture. I mean, I was recently in Lahore Fort, where they have unlocked about 150 years worth of archives, and they have now restored them and are digitizing them. And I was very happy to see young students from Pakistani universities working as interns. And why not Pakistani American kids going there for a summer and spending time there and helping some archive and learning through the process. I guess that physical interaction is so much important, but short of that, digital interactions can also work rather well in this context.
Thank you so much, Raza. And you mentioned some great points about digital archives and in-person interactions. But I'd really, just to follow up on that, I'd love to learn how the diaspora can effectively contribute to positive social change in Pakistan without imposing those external perspectives that we were talking about earlier.
So I guess, I mean, I have always, argued that the role of the diaspora is so important. Not just in terms, I mean, of course, we are talking about heritage and culture and Pakistan's image, etc. But if you look at the successful nations today, so I can cite three: China being the foremost country, which has performed a miracle by lifting 800 million people out of poverty. It is something not acknowledged as widely as it should be. And take the case of Vietnam, take the case of the Philippines to some extent. All these countries have very engaged diasporas. In fact, the Chinese economic miracle, which began in the 1980s, was actually the Chinese diaspora was playing a critical role in the 70s and 80s by transferring technologies and also transferring ideas and investments into mainland China when the Chinese Communist Party started to open up the economy. And that has been well recorded how in those critical 2 or 3 decades until the 90s, the diaspora was the primary engine of domestic investment facilitation. But we are not talking about that. But other than that, the diaspora, take the case of Indian diaspora, or take the case of Israeli diaspora, or take the case of other means, there's a very critical role. And I think, as Ambassador Sheikh mentioned earlier, that these identities, even though we live in an age of multiple identities, we are both Pakistanis, we are Americans, we are global citizens, we are, etc., etc. But the diaspora has a very important role, and for that purpose, I think, I know some organizations which are already doing some great work, in terms of musical collaborations, orchestras, linking up musicians from Pakistan to orchestras here in the United States, and then the film festivals. Washington D.C. holds an annual international film festival. The Tribeca Film Festival is also held, where Pakistani documentaries, Pakistani short films, long films, feature films can be presented and showcased. Recently the case of Joyland is a case in point. It's a high quality film, recognized at the Cannes Festival. Has won 5 or 6 or more awards already within a span of a year and a half. And there are many other short films which are being produced, and these days, this is the age of video. Sadly, the reading culture is dwindling everywhere, both in the US and elsewhere. But film is a very powerful tool, and I think that is where a lot of communities can invest, and the diaspora can help make those connections. You see, I always remind this to friends in the United States wherever I go, that it's not always about money. People think that you're talking about a collaboration. Okay, let's do a fundraiser. I know diasporas already, they have their hands full on this education initiative and this health initiative and that initiative. But sometimes it's about very key collaborations. It is about university to university, film school to film school, um, media outlet to media outlet. And those connections, those vital connections, are really, really key. But I think one other thing, the larger banner, is that, more now I see many young American Pakistanis going into the media. Traditionally, because the way our culture, and I guess the South Asian culture at large, has been that, we don't encourage children to go and become journalists, or or join the media. There should be doctors or engineers or civil servants, or I don't know, join NASA. But now I see more and more young Pakistani Americans entering the media fields. I think that's something that the diaspora parents need to do, that they should let them explore unconventional careers, because there's a lot which they can offer, and those are the very important connections that we can solidify going forward.
Thank you so much, Raza. These are such important points and such a refresher to hear about starting systemic change within our culture and within ourselves. Change starts from home. Now, my last question is for Ambassador Sheikh. What message do you have for the Pakistani-American community as they celebrate Independence Day away from home?
Well, as I already said, that they are the most important bridge between the two nation states. Pakistan and United States have a long-standing partnership from day one till today, as we celebrate this 79th Independence Day. So when the trajectory is positive, the positivity of their role also takes center stage. And in whichever discipline they are operating, whether it is arts, culture, sciences, IT is one important area, given the youthful configuration of Pakistani population, where perhaps the chances of collaboration are most conspicuous going forward, because again, we would be two mega countries. In 2 decades' time, given our population growth rate, Pakistan will have more people than United States itself. So maybe we will finally settle after India and China in that order at number 3 and 4, Pakistan and United States. So it's not a matter of choice or option or liking or disliking. It is a demographic, futuristic, political, economic imperative that two mega countries of the world should have good relations, should have standalone relations. Raza mentioned that Pakistan is still being viewed here in the United States through the Afghan lens. So Pakistan, being a 250 million strong nation, should not be looked at through the lens of Afghanistan, Russia, China, or India. If 250 million people do not merit their standalone relationship, do not merit their own lens, then what would merit? Maybe if in a light vein, if they can assign us a number, we can try and hit that. We have a good population growth rate to merit independent attention. But the diaspora has the most important role to play. The diaspora is an asset of both the two countries and any ambassador here in the United States. Because the people-to-people linkages, whether they are established through businesses, whether they're established through cultural exchanges, whether they are established through, kind of heritage experiences or exposures with regard to each other, whether they are established in the domain of politics, through parliamentary groups, through the leadership interaction. Any interaction with regard to the two countries has to be facilitated, has to be catalyzed, has to be afforded a pathway through diaspora involvement. And that is where perhaps for the first ever time as ambassador, we are reaching out of Washington, D.C. to state governments, state legislatures, state governors, state assemblies in United States, because under the US Constitution, any state in the world, in the United States, can have economic relations with any other country in the world. That's what makes California the fourth largest economy in the world. Texas just took over about 6 months back France and became the sixth largest economy in the world. So we are reaching out through our diaspora to the state assemblies, to the state legislators and legislatures, and the corporate America through diaspora connections, making the diaspora take the lead and profit in mutually rewarding terms from the promise of Pakistan as one of the mega countries from a futuristic standpoint, and not just another mega country, but a country whose civilization has survived millennia. So, we have been there for a while, and we are going to stick out for the foreseeable future. And Pakistan is going to be a country, a people to contend with. Our indicators are ascendant. This is the right time for anybody in the United States, more so our diaspora, to plug in, to join the effort, to be. I was addressing the Independence Day event today, and through that room, the Jamshed Marker Hall in our embassy, I tried to address the entire diaspora in Pakistan, telling them that as ambassador of Pakistan, I delegate to each one of you my powers to act as an ambassador and try and forge good relations between our two countries, because they are not just important to today, not just important to Pakistanis and Americans of this age and time. They are futuristic. It's a sort of time and space imperative that we have to do it. It's not a matter of choice or, there is nothing, ifs and buts about it. It is definite. It has to go forward. So the sooner we start doing it, and what better time to capitalize on this upward positive trajectory in the relationship. There is a consonance of views at the leadership level. There is a consonance of views at the level of private sectors. They are coming together, and maybe in the next few months, you will see certain initiatives being rolled out. I would leave that much suspense out there, but fairly soon, we would be trying to engage. And I have noted all the suggestions that have come with regard to reviving the chairs, with regard to digitizing the content that we have in terms of our heritage, using the digital medium in bringing people together and making them stay together. And also partnerships, whether they are university partnerships, whether they are private sector partnerships, whether they are artistic partnerships, whether they are political partnerships, and more significantly, the economic partnerships. I would only be repeating the words of Secretary Rubio when I say that our interests should be intertwined, and we are looking at a strategic partnership underwritten by economic interests and economic interaction. And diaspora is the ultimate beneficiary. Whenever they come together and strengthen their Pakistani identity through investments in Pakistan, through economic linkages in Pakistan, through benefiting from the Pakistani prospects and promise, they will not only be doing the bridge part, but they would be a very well-off and good-looking and prosperous bridge, I can assure you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Sheikh and Raza, for your insightful and inspirational comments. Now I would like to invite Dr. Qureshi for his closing remarks.
Thank you, Maha. It's been, as you said, an insightful and a thought-provoking session. And I would like to thank Ambassador Sheikh and Raza for all their comments and giving us also, in an answer to your questions, what we can do going forward. I want to remind everyone that this is not the only session that we are having. As of last year and this year, we have a week celebrating Pakistan heritage. So to your point, Raza and to Ambassador Saab, we actually, over the last 2 years, have covered in podcasts and webinars the culinary history of Pakistan. This year we have an amazing speaker talk about the evolution of art in Pakistan. The Leadership Council, one of the members, have done a whole podcast on henna, the art of henna, and how to apply it, etc., which is of great interest to them. So we have 4 other sessions which will be on our YouTube, and I'd encourage everyone to go and view them. Building a positive image of Pakistan in the United States remains our key target and initiative. With that, thank you everyone for being here, and I hope to be seeing all of you sometime soon and continuing to do what we're doing as APF. Thank you.
And Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.